Even as a teenager, Greg Kraft knew he wanted to be a college track and field coach. What he couldn't have known or fathomed at that young age is the impact he'd make on the sport. During a stellar 40-year coaching career, Kraft left his mark on 5 programs. He spent the majority of those years at Arizona State, where his multiple team championships put him in exclusive company. Kraft began his tenure in Tempe in 1996, when ASU athletic director Kevin White successfully lured him away from the burgeoning power he was building at South Carolina. Good hire, as the new coach led a renaissance of ASU track and field. In 2007, Kraft coached the women's program to both indoor and outdoor national titles. And the following year, he became just the second head coach to lead a sweep of the men's and women's NCAA indoor team championships. Those 4 titles count among ASU's 12 top 5 national finishes under Kraft's leadership. His Sun Devil athletes combined for 38 NCAA event titles and more than 300 All-America honors. Tonight, Greg Kraft's legendary journey lands him in the class of 2022 as an inductee into the USTFCCCA Coaches Hall of Fame.
Thank you, and I want to thank Sam and the Coaches Association for this honor. Obviously, in this platform, it's kind of hard to thank everybody over a 40-year career, so forgive me if I don't mention a lot of people, but obviously this is a career award, so it's the result of a lot of great student athletes, coaches, administrators, and support staff, so thank you to them. When I try to reflect on how I got here, for me, the foundation is my parents. And I think that's true for everybody, and you heard the speakers before me. My dad worked for his dad, and so early in life, my brother and I worked for our father. And the one thing I'll tell you when you work for your father, and the lessons I learned working for my dad, is one is how to work, what it means to be on time, and what it means to complete the job. And needless to say, learning how to work is self-explanatory, but learning to be on time, my grandfather ran a small factory, and we'd start our shift when I worked for him about 7 o'clock in the morning, or I shouldn't say about 7 o'clock. It would start when the whistle blew at 7 o'clock. And early in my time working for my dad and grandfather, sometimes I showed up at about 7:01 or 7:02, and the foreman would put me in timeout. And I could start work at 7:30 because there were 2 lessons. One, you're not getting paid for work you didn't do, and being on time means getting there at 6:50 and being at your workstation at 7. Learning to finish the job, our shift would end at 3:30, but invariably a couple times a week, the foreman would come by about 3:15 and tell us we're working till 5. And as a young person, I'd be a little irritated with that news. But every time I walked out of the plant to leave, I'd always notice that my dad and grandfather were still working. And so those are lessons that your parents teach you that you don't really realize at the time that they're the best lessons you can learn. My mom and brother immigrated to the States in 1952, and as a woman of color, I saw her have numerous jobs growing up. But eventually she would parlay her earnings to owning and operating her own restaurant up the street from where we grew up. And if you don't know the restaurant business, it's kind of like being an athletic trainer. You're going to be there 2 hours before the first event, and you're going to stay there 2 hours after the last event. And in between, it's either feast or famine. And literally, that's the case. And so the one thing I learned from my parents were, what it meant to work. And people now talk about the grind, but back then that was called life. That's just what you did. And so for me, those were my role models, my grandfather, parents, and my brother. Track and field, I always wanted to be a coach. That was the only thing I had as my goal. And so 3 coaches had a big impact on me. Jack Martin was my coach at Mission San Jose High School, and he's by every stretch a great track coach. Fortunately for me, he developed me to be a good enough athlete where I was recruited to Cal Poly SLO by Steve Simmons. And Steve would leave to go to Oregon State, and so for the last 2 years of my eligibility, Steve Miller came in to be the coach, and a lot of you know Steve. For me, my relationship with the coach really started in his track and field theory class. Cal Poly was a Division II school, and all of the coaches taught their theory class. And in that class, we had a little book, Tom Ecker's Biomechanics of Track and Field. And that was really the start of me trying to become the best coach that I could be. My relationship with Steve would really kind of take it to the next level when I took his psychology of sport class. And I think if you guys know Steve, you know he's a great lecturer, and this was the environment that he was best in, talking about how you reach people. And so with Steve, his best gift was motivating. What he taught in that class was how to construct messages and how to go about building a culture of a team. And for me, taking that class was completely insightful. It was really an exciting class. But being on the team and hear him speak to the team, you could see him create an emotional attachment for everybody on our team to the team. And with that, we had tremendous synergy on our team, and we had some definite stars, but because of the environment he created, a lot of the athletes were able to overachieve. And so with that, I started to become kind of a fixture in his office, trying to soak up as much as I could about coaching, because I always thought it was about X's and O's, and he showed me it was about connecting, because that was his ability to connect and motivate. But I would finish out my eligibility, and I was determined to be a coach. I got my teaching credential, and I was applying for high school jobs. And Steve came to me and asked me what I was doing. He says, well, I'm trying to get a job. I'm applying for high school jobs, and I want to coach. And he goes, why would you do that? You said you want to be a college coach. Lance Harder was with us. He came from Colorado. He was a high school coach. I said, you're a high school coach. And he said, no, it just takes too long. If you want to be a college coach, you come work for me. We'll get you a little work-study thing. But if you want to be a college coach, you have to demonstrate that, and you have to be able to create your own relationships. And really, that was my start into the college coaching realm. And I can't thank Steve enough for his guidance in that and his faith in me that I could do that. But that was really how my journey got into the world of track and field, because again, that was what my goal was. For me, fortunately, I've had a lot of great stops along the way, a lot of great assistant coaches, a lot of great mentors, but I don't want to bore you guys with that. You kind of saw the introduction there, and I think that says it all. But I do want to introduce my table, because I think I'm standing here because of the work we did at Arizona State. And at my table, Coach Drenth is here. He was my second hire. I went to Arizona State. I was able to hire two coaches, Daryl Anderson from Kentucky to be my sprint coach, and Walt Drenth from the College of William and Mary. And the one thing that I think you heard some of the speakers talk about, everybody needs to be relevant to the process for you to be successful. And when I came to ASU, our cross-country program was non-existent, and our distance kids were the most disenfranchised group of student athletes I've ever set eyes on. And Coach Drenth, against his better judgment, came from the College of William and Mary, and he immediately changed that culture, elevated expectations, elevated talent, but also elevated those results. And the work that he did was really the springboard for us in the winter and spring, because we wanted to be a complete track and field program. And the cross-country success that he created was really the springboard for our indoor and outdoor track and field team. And I know Coach Drenth wasn't there when we won some of our major trophies, but if you look at any of our trophies, his fingerprints are all over it, so I want to thank Walt. Ron Barilla, my pole vault coach, there's not a more selfless coach in the country than Ron. And I'll also say there's not another person that loves ASU track and field more than Ron Barilla. And I can't thank him enough, because when he comes to practice every day, I just can't believe how positive he is every day. And he just wants to see his student athletes do well. And he's unique because he wants to see your student athlete do well as well. And I'm not quite that way. I wanted to see our athletes on the top, but he appreciated all the athletes in the competition, and that's a unique quality, so I want to thank Ron. Additionally, I want to thank their wives that are here, Kara and Christine. The one thing that we're gone a lot, and I want to thank their wives for being so patient and supportive of their time that they give to our program, because I know I ask, and our sport asks a lot of them, and they've been very supportive of them, and I can't thank them enough. So thank you, Kara and Christine. My wife's here. It's kind of funny here in Sioux Talk. My wife was the first scholarship athlete at Cal Poly for cross country, believe it or not. And Lance was her coach, and she was the last AIAW champion in the 1,500 meters. So that's kind of a small world. But we met in 1976 at Cal Poly, and that was the fall, and by the summer we were an item, so it's safe to say that we grew up together. And she's been there in Terre Haute, Tempe, and as you guys know that are in the profession and have wives and girlfriends, that's a tall task to order. If you want to know anything about her as a person, our sons are here, Kyle and Corey, and they're the result of her love and devotion to our family, so I can't thank them enough for being here. But in closing, I want to echo what a number of the speakers said. Coaching, a lot of fabulous student athletes, and after 40 years and being retired, I really do enjoy retirement. But coming here and talking to Pat and Dennis and some of the people that you get to know through our sport, those are the relationships and the memories that really carry a lot of weight. And so I want to congratulate everybody that's inducted, and I do want to congratulate the job that all of you are doing in this room here. Looking at the results, and since I've been retired, and just seeing the quality of performance, the depth of the performance, there's so many people here that are just doing great work that it's truly amazing. So I want to thank you guys for this honor, and it's really been a privilege to be called coach. So thank you.